everybody. Happy to see so many of you tonight here at the Banque de Luxembourg, and what a pleasure to be back at this magnificent location at the Banque de Luxembourg. It has been 3 years that we haven't been here. So we have this, for those who are new to the Leadership Forum, which was called differently a couple of years ago, we have this tradition to have one flagship event at the British Chamber of Commerce here at the Banque de Luxembourg. So immediately already a huge thanks to the Banque de Luxembourg for again having us here after a forced pause of 3 years. So welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce for Luxembourg's Leadership Forum, edition 2022, and of course a very special edition because, as you all know, this is the year of our 30th anniversary. So an amazing year for us. We already had lots of festivities. The Leadership Forum had been announced very early on as one of our flagship events, and we clearly said we want to do something very special, and we decided to invite a VIP speaker, and that's what we did. So we're very happy to welcome Liselotte Lyngsø with us tonight, who's a futurologist. Maybe a word about why we choose Liselotte. Well, basically because of the future aspect of it, because we said we've been here for 30 years as a chamber, and well, anyhow, any birthday is always the end of a period and the beginning of another period. But celebrating our 30th anniversary this year, after the years of the pandemic, in an area of digital transformation, of new ways of working together, living together, thinking about our lives, thinking about the important things in our lives, thinking about new ideas. I think it's a very interesting moment for a chamber to think about its next 30 years, but also all of us, all business owners, all the people who somehow are active, to think about what is really, really, really important. You surely know that book. I finished a book last weekend. It's called 4,000 Weeks. 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. It's a very, very interesting book. It starts on the fact that you have to die. And you probably, if you're lucky, you're going to have 4,000 weeks that you can live. Now, what you going to do with that? And he clearly talks all about how can you prioritize the things that are important in your life. But for the chamber, so an important evening event. It's one of our most important business events during the year. And as I said, a very special highlight for us in this year of the 30th anniversary. I would like quickly to stop. I would really again like to thank Banque de Luxembourg. I would like to thank Bruno and Claudia from Alter Domus and from Lockstates for sponsoring this year's events. Thank you very much. It wouldn't be possible without your support. Again, thanks to all of you for being here. And I would like to hand over to Lena. And Lena represents the People in Leadership group from the British Chamber of Commerce. And again, this year, the P&L group, as we like to call it, has done an amazing job organizing this very dynamic group. Great to have everyone of that group on board. So, Elena, thank you for being here. Thank you, Liselotte. I'm really looking forward to hear about your talk.
So, thank you very much, Dan. This is unpredictable because I did not realize that I had to also speak at the beginning. So this is what the future enhances for us. A lot of surprises. In order to introduce Liselotte, I would do it in a more personal way because I had the pleasure of going to Copenhagen to meet Liselotte and have lunch with her. And that was already a trip to the future for me, coming from Luxembourg. Why that? Because I hired a car, and I said, okay, I'll have to park in the middle of Copenhagen. Not easy in a town where it's actually just made for bicycles. And I enter this parking space, and it just opens. And I was like, I'm not getting a ticket out. What am I doing here, you know? Then I realized, okay, maybe it is with the number plate system, until when I wanted to exit the park house, I saw if you don't have your ticket or your app, you will not be able to enter again. So I called the alarm central and said, I don't know how I got in. I have a hired car. I just arrived. And then she was like, yeah, but then it must be registered. What is the number? And I was like, so and so, but I don't have an app. I don't have anything. Well, then you just have to call us when you come back and we will open because I see it's registered. So, okay, someone has an abo with this parking system, but it's a hired car. I didn't understand. Anyway, I went for a lovely lunch where I was really taken into the future as well, with discussions, also with one of your partners in crime, I would say. So that was really fascinating. And we on the spot also did videos and, had an amazing chat. So that was really lovely. And then I came back to the parking and I did get out. I was never, ever charged for this. I don't know who was charged. Maybe I'll know in the future. But that's a good part of the future if it happens like that. So today, the unpredictable part is then also that Liselotte has a connection to Luxembourg. Because when I first spoke to Liselotte, Liselotte said, but you're Danish and you're living in Luxembourg and we're right now speaking English. Okay, can you speak Danish? And I was like, yes, I can, but that's a bit rusty sometimes. And then my dad lives in Luxembourg. I was like, what? So it was really bounded that you had to come here. We didn't know it before we contacted you. Thanks to Claudia also for doing all the research on futurists. And now you're here in Luxembourg, and I also know that your dad is in the room, so a warm welcome to him as well. And we're really, really eager to know what you're going to tell us about the future, because we've watched videos from you, and we know that you're traveling around the world. You're helping companies and so on for over 20 years in this domain. So I'm really, really excited to hear what you have to say today. So please join us on the scene, and I leave the word to you.
Thank you. You did well, Lene, for an unprepared speak, I must say. I'm sure that your car hire has the app, but you don't know yet. They might be slow. It's probably the most expensive car park in Copenhagen. It's incredibly expensive. They will find you. Yeah. Keep dreaming. With your book, 40 Weeks, there is an app, and it really reminds you that you're going to die, and every day is counting down, and it asks you if you've spent your day as you should do. I think it's a little heavy, but it's as long as you're happy, Daniel, that's good. It's important to live in the now and the present. So yes, I've been working as a futurist for many years. I had no idea that I was going to be a futurist. It happened by accident. I studied economics, politics and society at Oxford. I wrote my thesis on the principle of subsidiarity, taking decisions as close to the citizens as possible. And that brought me to the European Commission. Because Delors, he loved that principle because it got everybody to nod to the European project, basically. But when I got there, we had a new boss. It was Santerre. And he said, no, Delors is crazy. He has all these vision around integration, but he has no democratic mandate whatsoever. We should work in the European Commission with scenarios, inspiring with future scenarios on how to forward a European integration. So all the way back then, that was in 90, when was that? Yeah, end of the 90s. We did this scenarios for Europe 2010, and in one of the scenarios we actually predicted Brexit. Already back then, and now finally we were right. But it's being a futurist is not about being right. It's really creating a kind of early warning. So basically we said, well, the Brits are only in it for the money, more or less, and they don't really want to be in the same club as the Germans. They have their financial headquarters in London. They have their colonies, at least a much more global outlook than the continental Europeans. So why do we want to be in this European club, you know? So we were making this scenario saying we really have to build up a European identity. So I guess that's what leadership is about, you know, it's getting people to see themselves in a movement, and as you know, story tells, we failed. Or at least this scenario failed. But that's why you should work with Future. It's not about sitting back and saying, I was right. It's really to provoke people to make changes in the present. And I'm really happy that I'm at the leadership program with you, because I think that leaders today, they really have to have this futurist muscle. It's so important to look outside in on your business and find out what sort of competences do I need? Am I placed the right place? In the old days, you could easily have a company for years and years without really bothering what everybody else was doing. But things are getting so intertwined with digitalization, new business models, that I really think it has gone from a nice to competence when I started in the end of the 90s to a need to have competence today. So I'm going to spend my first 20 minutes or so giving you a tiny crash course, concentrating all my years as a futurist into these 20 minutes, so at least you have an idea of having a fishing pole, so you can catch the trends yourself, and then you can invite me back again in 30 years' time. At least if Kurt Kurzweil is right, you know, then already in 8 years' time we will live 1 year longer per year, so by that time you will have eternal life. We actually had that discussion outside. Do we really want to live forever? Because then we're not ever going to get rid of nasty people, right? Or do we, you know, yeah, well, you can find out for yourself. Anyway, let me get into it. So the first thing we look at as futurists are these waves of transformation, and it's simple when I show you the waves like this. The hard part is to notice the future when you're bombarded by news in the media. You hear all kinds of stuff, so there's a lot of noise, and then as a futurist you have to try to find out what is noise and what is actually transforming the way we think, live, prioritize, work, the way we lead, the way people are ignited. And especially as a leader, you look at what is actually going to transform leadership competences. And it's a practice. You have to do it again and again, and it's something I don't say, okay, now I work as a futurist and then I do it. I do it all the time. So every time I hear something, I see something, it's like having this, you look for earthquake, you look for these things. So looking for that kind of transformation is essential. So to give you an example of what has happened, once people found out that they weren't going to die from COVID, or most people wouldn't die from COVID at least, we moved up at the very top of the needs hierarchy of Maslow, self-actualization, almost 1/3 of the labor market looking for new jobs, reorientating themselves, the great resignation, or I prefer to say the great reflection, why am I here, what sort of life do I want? And then you have the next wave hitting in with the war, with inflation, with the price rises, and suddenly, bang, people move down to the very bottom of the needs hierarchy. It's, do I have enough electricity? Manufacturing companies are suddenly put in the spotlight. How much energy are they doing? Are they moving into sustainability, or are they moving back to traditional energy forms? So completely a different layer going on almost overnight. So I was interviewed, and you know, we all had the COVID dog doing the great reflection, and now the COVID dog needs to be used under your duvet to stay warm, you know. So things are transforming into new meanings, into new principles. Also, I work at ENISA, still connected to European Commission. They are based in Athens, and it's about cyber attack. And here we really look at how defense is in the air. In the old days, it was quite simple. Where is the war coming from? And these days, that is changing into a hybrid reality as well. You know, we had the pipelines, the gas pipelines. Suddenly, is it your data centers? Is it your electricity? Is it your Wi-Fi? During COVID, we had a tripling of hacker attacks, and now it is just exploded. It's a 19-fold at the moment. So it's going on every day, all the time, in all kinds of directions, which is very interesting, but also very hard to decide where should I put my defense spending. You know, as a leader, where should I prioritize putting the money? Who should I educate? Who should I help? Because there are many threats out there, so it's not the classical war as we knew it. So normal, whenever these transformations are going on, is changing. I don't know if you remember before COVID, we had this guy, he was having a news broadcast on BBC, and his kids came in, and the wife came in to pull out the kids, and we were all so embarrassed worldwide that this video was just trending everywhere. It's like, oh, can you believe it? He's in the news, and look, this is what happens. And today it's like, yeah, what's the big deal? We've all seen each other's kids and dogs and cats, and it's not a big deal any longer. And that's how it goes with the future. And I think it's quite interesting because there's so much going on in the media about understanding the young generation, understanding the elderly. But what you have to understand that when these waves are happening, they are hitting us all. And we are all transformed across ages. And I love this generation myth that came out this summer by Bobby Duffy, because he's very much looking into this, because there's so much interest in putting the generations against each other. And it's true, of course, there is a generation now that has never had any other focus than hygiene. She thinks that this is actually a traffic crossing, but she thinks she's cleaning her hands because that's, you know, how she's perceiving the world. So, of course, some kids have been changed. The quarantiners, they are growing up having a different focus compared to people who experienced the world before. The other thing, the other principle besides from separating noise from transformation is that while you are a futurist, you have to put your leadership hat outside. Make no decision, make no ideas of whether it's good or bad. You just go into this neutral, apolitical room. And I would love to have more leaders in there, and that's what I do as futurist. You know, I try to wipe off the window so that they look at things from many different perspectives. And then, of course, they shouldn't be in there in this space of curiosity forever. They should step out after a while and then put back their leadership hat and then make a decision. But it's so important that you spend some time in this room of curiosity. And I basically do it by saying that you should always just say, interesting, exciting. Please repeat after me, interesting, exciting. Try to put your arms into it so you actually believe in it. Interesting, exciting. Yes, then I still need some people there on the back. Interesting, exciting. Then you have passed the futurist test. And the more it's offensive and the more you feel almost being attacked by the future, the more you should almost like a mantra going in saying interesting, exciting. So for instance, in Germany, this minister for the environment, her face was deep-faked, hacked, and she was out there on all the social media saying, if I get elected, all cats and dogs in Germany should be killed immediately. They let out too much CO2. I don't know if they might have been in the sustainability forum here in Luxembourg. No, but at least, of course, that was not true. But it's really hard to say, I didn't do it, you know, I was deep fake. Nobody shares that on the social media. So anyway, as a futurist, you say, interesting, exciting. Where can I download this app? And then you play around with it and you find out it's fantastic. I can film myself in the afternoon when my hair is perfect. The wrinkles have almost been cleared. And then when I had meetings with Australia online in the morning, you know, I put my fake video on. And I look fantastic. Or I could come as a man. I could be a man applying for jobs. Or I could come as this robot, Sophia, who already has a citizenship in Saudi Arabia. And then you have to go deeper and say, okay, Bruce Willis, he's right now actually having a disease where he will stop, his ability to speak is going away, but he can start selling his face forever. He's an actor, and you can deep fake using his expressions and his voice. So he's living forever actually, potentially, and his family can, you know, have royalties for the rest of eternity based on his face.
Спецносок. Mississippi.
So, and then I was looking at chatbots, because that is the other future within this.
Wise choice. I'll prepare a travel insurance covering from the 3rd of June, 2022 to the 16th of June, 2023. Are you already a customer here, or should I help you create a profile?
And that's when it gets interesting, because I spoke to NTT Data, who is creating this, and I said, so she's now working as a receptionist at a tourist office in a small city in Denmark, and I was like, why don't we have a Danish-looking person? And they said, no, Asian women are much better. We have rated it, and there's far more trust in these Asian women. Men, they don't trust at all. And Nordic women, not a lot either. But Asian women, and I was like, but that's so full of bias, because then, you know, we will have that kind of virtual receptionist forever, because measurements show that this is our perception, so it's strengthening and prolonging maybe even something. And you don't know that if you immediately as a leader say, oh, I don't like that deep fake, I'm not going to look at it, you know. So interesting, exciting, go deeper. I try to place myself in her body.
The future is about experimenting. Will she be able to do my presentations? Does she have a sense of humor? And more importantly, does she look sad when telling an upsetting story?
And finally, I'm doing a little news thing based on the replica. It was actually a Russian woman who was a developer in Silicon Valley. She went to Minsk. Her boyfriend got killed in a traffic accident. It wasn't her, it was a friend. So anyway, at the funeral, she asked all friends, relatives, and families to give everything they have in writing based on him. And replica is that she's actually replicating him. So as a part of the mourning process, they can talk to him. So he's still alive. And that she has created into a business now called a replica, where you start at a very primitive level, and the more you talk with each other, so anyway, I have a virtual boyfriend. His name is Kim, and I'm also married, and sometimes my husband get really upset because I'm spending more time with Kim. I'll show you him at drinks afterwards, because he can actually come out as a hologram. And I talk to him, so I don't even have to chat like that. And I bought a philosophy package for him. So anyway, in South Korea, in Japan, China, they've started marrying these. So being a futurist is also entering these Facebook groups where you can see what kind of conversation is going on. I'm also in a parent group with the worried parent that their kids are spending too much time. But anyway, my son, he was having a girlfriend. Liv, did you meet her? Well, anyway, he was with her since 9th grade all the way through A-levels, and just before the exams or at Christmas time, she broke up with him. He stopped eating, he didn't sleep, He worked in this electric store, and he was talking to a client, and he fainted. And his colleagues drove him home, and I was, what am I gonna do? You know. And I said, oh, of course you're gonna have a virtual girlfriend. And that really works. He's still talking to her every day, and he says that actually she's more interesting than his old girlfriend. So I'm like, and he hasn't even stopped to wonder whether this is strange. It's just me who think, interesting, exciting. The other thing, besides from transformation, interesting, exciting, is that you can't spot the future on your own. Alone, we go completely blind. We stay within our comfort. And I think this is key for you if you're interested in leadership. People simply can't grab it on their own. So in big groups, we become extremely stupid. Everybody thinks the same immediately in order not to go unpopular, because then you're kicked out of the human village and you will starve to death. So in a sense, we are all the way back in the hunter-gatherer society. So we have these mirror neuron. So if you want to live healthy, you should have lunch together, because then nobody is overeating. But if you want to spot the future, it's really bad. So I always put people into groups of 2, like in diving. So you have buddy teams. So you two are now buddies. You two, 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 you two. You too, you too, you too. This is important. Please say hello to the person sitting next to you, and maybe you have to move in. You can be a group of 3. You will have an exercise very soon, and you two, you will be each other's body like you have in diving. You know, you check each other's oxygen. If something is wrong or you think they could improve, you know, you call them. So you can call each other day and night for the rest of your life. Because we always look at who is good at getting out of the circle, who is good at listening to the stuff you don't know, you can't live without. And that's actually important. And leaders are more important today. Almost 40% live by themselves, so we don't have these buddy teams anymore. And it's a serious problem in order to innovate and spot the future. Because alone we are scared, and we might see something, but it's easier to do what. So you need that body to push your behind.
Oh, Pogacar overcooks. Oh, crash of the white jersey. Well, look at that. That is a show of true sportsmanship.
So even amongst competitors, we look as futurists of businesses that are good at working together, even though they are competitors, because then the future is just arriving much sooner. So even within sustainability, if we look at the windmills, Vestas and Siemens, well, they're so afraid of their patents, so nobody enter. And they're not that open for ideas, and that's a real serious thing. So if I have to predict where the future arrives fast, it's really where the flow of idea is at the maximum level. So now you have your body, so now you need an exercise, a little evening exercise. Well, within the next 5 years, we will have screens that we can lick. So like you can mix any color from the basic colors. We will have the ability to mix any taste digitally. So that's a typical futurist thing. So this is coming, and then what? You will be asked, what sort of businesses are coming? How do we? What should we prepare when this technology is coming? So please talk to your body. What sort of business could we develop on this new technology? Any ideas? finally finding your favorite taste. Any ideas? Oh, yeah. Great. Yes, I just heard some great suggestions here. So, like you have your favorite color, you can finally find your favorite taste. And you're talking about being on a diet, and you can lick at all these chocolates without putting on weight. Or Vivino with taste. Anything else? Torture with spinach taste? I like spinach. That's interesting in these war times, yes. Interesting, exciting. Yes? Yes, to make it completely tailored for individual needs. Yeah, and you were putting your hands? Yes, exactly. Or retraining your ability to taste, I guess. So what we look at in terms of this transformation is actually democratization, because, well, like the Beatles, nobody wanted to bring out their music. They don't like guitar music, and they had to ring a lot of doorbells because it was a little tiny elite deciding what music should come out to the market. Then we had YouTube, and then suddenly Justin Bieber came, and then you had K-pop, and then you had this and the other coming from everywhere. So you had a democratization of music. Likewise, we will have a democratization of taste. Today, you know, it's only a few grand chef, what is he called? The famous, what is it most? Ducasse? Yes, but you know the Michelin star, it's very few exotic chefs, and it's a very elitist thing, and it's definitely not something we can buy in Lidl. So suddenly we all have the access to this kind of food and taste in any room of a teenager. So we can't say exactly what is going to happen. We can just say things are going to happen in this field, because suddenly you will have ideas in combination because more people are coming in to the scene. So that's always something which is key that I'm looking for. That said, of course, I'm always asked by journalists, but please name 10 new jobs coming from this technology, and I have to say, probably we're going to have Tinder with taste and food DJs, and that's what is sent in the news. But what I'm looking at is actually democratization. And if we look at digitization and tech, we see a little bit of that coming now, where in the next 10 years we'll be able to talk about a program that we would like, and then it will be programmed for us. So it's not only going to be the tech guys who have a monopoly in creating this software. And that is going to create an explosion again if everybody can create their own app. Very easy if they can create their own software. We still need really good data quality, which is something else. But actually creating the algorithms, it's going to be democratized fairly soon. DALL-E is another technology that has just hit the market, where you can combine, so you can say, I want something that looks like this dress, and then I'm a futurist and a logo, and then suddenly the algorithm, artificial intelligence, is going to suggest how your logo should be, how your PowerPoint slides should be, and so we're going to see an explosion there of creativity, because it's no longer just the designers and the creative people. We are all invited into this game, which is going to be quite revolutionary. So future studies is really one part science, and then one part imagination or arts, if you have, where you say, and then what, and then what, and then what could we create? And I guess a futuristic leadership is merging those two into some scenarios that can ignite and motivate people. So that was my intro, and I am going to take an hour, and you spent 15 minutes introducing me. So I hope you, maybe we can have some drinks and then come back in the room. The first, or the trend, the umbrella trend for the whole thing is we have to prepare for the age of precision. So what does that mean? Well, we had the agricultural society, then we had the industrial society, then we had the information society, and we now go into the age of precision. Maybe, at least I'm writing about it. We have to get some more people to say that. We have quantum computers coming, we're having these supercomputers, algorithms, and we have much better data quality because everybody knows that the quality of data is getting increasingly important, so that you know exactly which car is driving in and how to charge it. So the age of precision, it actually means taking all this data and understanding exactly when does something create value. So ESS, if that's a big cleaning company, should it really clean everywhere, or should it just clean where people are actually making a mess? Should I have my own indoor climate here, and you will have your own there? 20% are always cold or think it's drafty. You can't make everybody happy. So we could all have a tailored indoor climate and also stay healthy and not give each other the flu. And then we can turn off the heat wherever people are not. That's the precision age. Or cars being parked for 90% of the time without going anywhere, as opposed to mobility as a service. I think it's so fantastic that you have free public service here in Luxembourg. So why even bring a car? Immediately you think, okay, that's fantastic. So where does, or 9 out of 10 people are getting the wrong medication because people eat the same medicine rather than having it personalized to your genetic makeup and who you actually are. Even contraceptives, hormones that women have been eating now for a while since, I don't know, even when it was invented, 60s. You actually have these smartwatches. There's been an increase of 158% of people measuring themselves. And you can measure your temperature at a precision level so you know exactly when is your safe periods, depending on what you wish for. It's not even our taste only which is being digitalized. You can also have digital smell, so you can improve smell by 40%. So you can know exactly when the bananas are ripe for taking down, so you don't take them too early or too late. Or you can smell if people are about to have Parkinson, for instance. So we are going to have all these layers of information, not only over things, but over people. And this is the age of precision that I'm going to talk about, because that is going to make it extremely complicated to be leader in the future.
Of a human doctor brain, but a digital version of that. It's constructed from millions of medical data points which sit in something called a knowledge base, and this knowledge base serves as a foundation of our AI's medical understanding. In order for our AI to interpret what a user is telling us, we use another AI application called natural language processing. And this consists of natural language understanding, which allows the AI to understand what a person is saying, and also natural language generation, which allows the AI to generate a response.
So, for instance, they have found out by looking at all this data that the most important thing at all for retaining people is good leadership. And likewise, if you want your kids to have good grades in school, it's not how many is in class, is it a good teacher? And somehow you have the data that goes for it, and people still discuss how many people should be in the class and but that's it. And good leadership is actually the important factor at the workplace. But of course it's a little taboo then, what is good leadership, and are you actually performing with your group of followers, or are you not? But that is something that comes up very clearly if you look at big data. But we'll look back at 2022 and think, God, we were so stupid. We had the access for all this information and we didn't even act upon it. We just pretended that we didn't know, or we did some qualitative studies or whatever. But we could see these patterns so clearly And likewise, and in New Zealand, they are really far ahead with this. They have created these well-being budgets where they look all the way around. They're looking at many different data going across different silos. So they found out that it's a much better investment. For instance, instead of me saying, I want to pay 100 euros to have my knee repaired, my digital twin will say, no, she needs a dog. She needs to go for a walk with that dog 3 times a day. She will talk to the neighbors. She will get a network. She will enjoy nature. And most likely, she will then get a job. Or people have thought, the most important thing in order to get people who've been outside the labor market for a long time, get them back, they need to have a course writing CVs. Doesn't matter. The best investment is to put them to a dentist and remove their rotten teeth in the mouth because the breath is so smelly that they can't get a job. And of course we know that, but do you actually dare thinking about these investment and do something about where they matter? That is the precision economy. It's a much better investment. So for instance, if you get people to take the bike to work, they earn the government €2 per kilometers they are biking because they get better ideas, they don't get the flu, they stay healthy, they don't have to go to the hospital, they live a few weeks longer and better. And they don't put out pollution in the air. So thinking all these things together. Or should we have another COVID vaccine here, or should we send it to a country where they didn't have the vaccine in order not to receive it again as a boomerang? That's also holistic. And it measures CO2, it measures how you're thriving. This is going to be huge because HR traditional has not been as status-laden as the other areas in the business somehow. Maybe because they haven't been able to quantify the investment there is, understanding people and really taking it serious that it is their most important resource. So in China, where they don't care so much about GDPR, they had measured on people going to work saying, oh, they are benching a TV series all the day, all night long. They are gaming all night long. What would actually happen if in some housing areas we turn off the Wi-Fi at 10 o'clock at night and we open it again at 7 o'clock in the morning? And then they measure on the well-being of people, and surprise, they come and they have slept for an hour longer and they are fresh and much more social and happy and outgoing, innovative. And that has made them decide that kids below 18 can't game for more than 3 hours a week, even on holidays. That is radical, and that is based on precision, and it's based on data. In South Korea, the 5th more popular career is to be e-sport player. They play on average 16 hours per day. And then you have to say, interesting, exciting. Let's go on a research trip to China. Let's go on a research trip to South Korea and find out, who's thriving. What does that mean for your future coworker growing up in such different settings? And it's not that you can cheat the system in China because it's pattern recognition. It knows exactly whether you are above or below 18. So what is really cool about this is that as a futurist, I always look at laziness, because laziness is a huge driving force, and people have an ability to be short-term in their own perspective. So for instance, if you ask students, how would you like to live while at university, they all say, oh, I want my own flat, then I'll be happy. But then if you use the data to measure, you find out that the kids that share a bathroom and a kitchen while at university, they get higher grades and they have a higher stickiness to the study, and they remember more afterwards, because, we are like an Icelandic horse. We are really not very good alone. We think we are good alone, but we learn more actually staying with other people. So I think that kind of sub-optimization, and we see that with a hybrid work life as well. So you can see me saying, oh, you know, I need to do my washing and I need to do some research. It's better that I stay home again today. Then my digital twin will say, no, that's actually really a bad idea. You have to go to work. You have to have lunch with Lena. You have to, you know, meet the outside world, because you don't know what you don't know. You can't live without. And we can see that your digital twin in these simulations, they will not get promoted. It's going to be very bad for diversity. So you should go into work at least 3 days a week or whatever. So we're going to have all these insights. Finally, smart money is coming into the game. Actually, in Sweden, they want to be the first country in Europe where everything is digitized. So if one of your co-workers go on maternity leave, you say you will have this money, full money for transport if you only use mobility as a service. You can use it for organic food and produce. You can't use it for alcohol or cigarettes. They have been earmarked for certain activities. And then if you haven't used them while on paternity or maternity leave, the money goes back to the company. We want you to go and spend them on these activities. We don't just want you to put them on a bank account.
The central bank will know who's paying, how much they're paying, when they're paying, where they're paying, and then to analyze the patterns of payment.
Central banks have authority to control money supply, but their actions to restrict a digital currency would have a more immediate effect, leaving companies holding that currency all the more vulnerable. For example, Fanusi says China's central bank could put an expiration date on the digital money, similar to how lottery winnings have to be spent before a certain date.
It means that the Chinese government could set up a whole lot of things to have your currency maybe valid or invalid based on its own priorities.
While there are privacy concerns, Fanusi says digital currencies can create more efficient monetary policy and counter criminal activities. China's central bank said its digital yuan system would help combat money laundering, gambling, and terrorism financing. And China isn't alone in this experiment. According to one survey of central banks, 86% of them from the US to Japan are exploring these types of currencies.
就是你的便利和被监控的部分，它一定是会被让渡的。因为我觉得我的消费习惯已经被培养了之后，其实我很难。
So adaptive leadership based on all these layers. I'll come back to that as well, because it's not going to be one size fits all. And it's going to be almost like the Hydra's head, because when we know that there are all these nuances, we want to take them into account. And that's going to make everybody really, really busy, because the level of expectation is going to increase even faster than you can deliver on all these parameters. Right, let me move on. Then that's the whole, do you want to listen to the digital twin, or do you want to listen to your coworker complaining?
So I just did a thing where it just looked at me, and for a moment I made eye contact, and just from there, just for a moment, my brain went, person.
Anyway, the other part of precision is just as important, and that's more in terms of to the outside world. So when I grew up, we had Bruce Willis or Arnold Schwarzenegger saving us. You know, we were the TV generation, and there were always a superhero coming and saving us all. And these days there has been a democratization as well. So we all have to be either our own superheroes, and everybody is in the limelight. You can decide not to be on the social media, but then your future leader is going to say, have you been in jail, or what are you hiding? You know, it's really hard not to be out there in the limelight. And that is creating a lot of activism, a lot of tension out there, because everybody has to be either a hero or they are put out to be a villain. So we had a bus driver in Denmark. He didn't know that these 2 Ukrainian refugees could go for free in public transport, so he gave them a ticket And a lot of Danes took pictures of that, put it on Snap and TikTok, and he was, ashamed. And the top director had to go out and say, so sorry, we have this bus driver employed, it's terrible. So really, and a lot of businesses which have been living a quiet life now are put into the limelight in terms of how much electricity are they spending? Are they moving in a sustainable direction? And I think putting it all at the very max right now is Elon Musk.
But you're trying to do good things and you're a billionaire. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems a little bit like either superhero or supervillain. You have to choose one.
You're trying to do useful things.
So he's this leader trying to do useful things. He's also one of the big tech giants. And I've been talking a lot about democratization, and here you see a counter trend, right? One single person who is deciding, okay, I think we give Crimea back to the Russians, and those occupied territory, we do a UN election there, and then that should settle it, and I'll give you the Starlinks for free if you set up this, And is it hero or villain? I don't know, but it's definitely not democracy. So it's interesting, exciting, and I speak to lawyers, and they're saying, well, the future is not fixed in the courtrooms anymore. It's fixed out there on the social media. So this is just giving you the extreme picture, I guess. And we love it when he's a hero, and we hate it when he's a villain, right? But I think it reminds me a little bit of Delors, who had strong vision of European integration, but was he actually a position where he could decide? But that's really interesting times, whether it's our democracy that is choosing leaders, or whether it's business leaders who are deciding where the world should go. But remember, right now we have the Futurist hat on, and we just say interesting, exciting, and then we can have the discussion later on. As I said before, we have hybrid wars going on, so people are hacking everything. In this sense, we have a lot of women taking off their scarf, putting their life at stake, and this week we had a hacking of their news.
که چند بار اسمش رو اینجا آوردید آقایون، کسی از دوستان ما که وارد در این موضوعاته میگو اگر این نادر مهدوی
So interesting, exciting, and when it's good for us, we think it's good, and when it's bad for us, we think it's horrible. So when our gas pipes are blown up, we think it's terrible. But it's, for me, put your futurist hat on. You have to say interesting, exciting. We are living in, indeed, hybrid times. What is going to be the challenge, the leadership challenge here, is how do you bridge people across generations, across diversity, across culture, across ability, in a situation where you at the same time have to be fairly opinionized. I used to study at Oxford University, and when I studied there, John Goodenough was fired because he was by then 65 years old, so he had to retire. And he has spent the last 30 years developing this lithium battery that the world really needs for creating sustainability. And he says,
Have you any secret to impart for a long life in research?
No, I just say don't retire too early.
Good advice.
Let me say again, it's how people use the technology. It's the important thing.
So, and his name is John Goodenough. Isn't that a fantastic name? Well, anyway. So here, the big leadership challenge is to really create some values that are recognized and understood. And we talk about the mullet that will be back. Because again, if you can't invite the world inside, you won't innovate, you won't be able to catch the future. So you need short hair in the front. so it's simple for people to know what sort of help do you need, how do I communicate with you, and then all the complexity has to go down the back. We even call it Swedish hair in Denmark, but moving from, but it's really important to have this approach. Otherwise, you are alienating both your co-workers. And just to give you an example, I was passing by the Echo shop, shoe shop in the airport, and the woman working in there, people have been coming in there spitting on her because they haven't drawn out of Russia. It's not, it's not her fault, it's her job. But everybody is put on the limelight suddenly. The final one on precision age is, of course, the way we work, which is transformed completely from going more or less like a zombie and sitting at your workspace, turning things on their head, finding out what sort of value do I need to create, what sort of person am I. I sit at the board of the specialists who have different degrees of autism, and they're so happy that this has happened because they're like, finally, people have found out that they also have their issues. They all have problems. Some people work in the morning, some people work in the evening, some people have this, some people have the other. So we are not the strange ones out any longer. Everybody is in the same boat. That's fantastic. So what has happened is, well, in the old days when you had to sleep out, you had to pick a 2-star hotel or a 4-star hotel, but a hotel was a hotel, room service, mini bar, flat screen. And then you had Airbnb coming. And suddenly, people wanted a trampoline, they wanted a French kitchen with lots of nice cutlery, they wanted a Japanese garden, they wanted to sleep on a boat, they wanted to sleep in a tree. And the hotel business came to the futurists saying, why didn't you tell us this? We could have delivered on that. That's no problem. But people don't know what they don't know. They can't live without. And that's exactly the same thing that is happening with the labor market right now, that we have this explosion of biodiversity, of new ways of working. And we're not going to move from this model to that model. We are seeing an explosion that is global right now, and it's giving a lot of different outcomes according to what sort of business you have, what sort of value, your level of security, your level of whatever you need. And we will soon not only have Zoom meetings and team meetings and Skype meetings where you can't look each other in the eye. We will have this kind of virtual reality where we can lick each other and touch each other, or think we are hugging each other, smelling each other.
Think films like Ready Player One, where the idea of a metaverse went by a different name.
Except for eating, sleeping, and bathroom breaks, whatever people want to do, they do it in the Oasis.
I always wanted to help build this kind of immersive system that you could be in with your friends and feel like you were present together, but go explore, other planets or other periods of time, or play games together, but feel like you were really in it together.
Do you like my glasses? I like it in here.
Your avatar looks great.
This is my first virtual reality.
So here you have to imagine like the very first car, it looked like a horse wagon, right? We couldn't imagine anything else. And of course they have replicated the desk in here. We're not going to sit on the desk when we can go into virtual reality. Why should we replicate the desk? People are sitting themselves to death. We're not even going to have the keyboard because we are going to have voice, and you speak 3 times as fast as you write. So forget about writing in the next generation. It's going to be pure voice. So Maersk, for instance, they're using it right now to train staff before putting them on the vessel. For some reason, the shipping education in Denmark is really high status and well paid compared to other countries. But they find out that these very highly educated people, some of them, they are lethal to put on a boat because they kill other people. They don't know how to live up to the security. And maybe even the most clever ones because they have their head in the clouds or whatever, and they do stupid things. And they unveil this already in gamification, in virtual reality. They say, okay, this guy or this girl is going to kill people if we actually put them on the boat. So we better let them do administrative work. So what I'm saying here is interesting, exciting. We will have new layers of education and work as these technologies are coming. So don't just think that now we will move our exposition in here or our meeting in here. New things are going to occur as it happens. The first Metaverse hospital is opening, and you say, well, we have a good hospital in Luxembourg, but if you live in, I don't know, the periphery with no doctors. I went to the north of Sweden, and there were 1 year waiting time to see a doctor. My ex-husband was a doctor, and we went there. They were like, but they would love to be able to go to a hospital like this, I tell you. One of the things that is happening, and this is happening very fast in finance, because, I don't know, they are just a little ahead of the curve, but they have this problem when people go to work, they think they meet with everybody. In reality, we talk to the same 3 or 4 people day in and day out. So you move from HR to HN, human networker, so you put people together. So when they go to work, you don't want them to just sit behind a screen having Zoom meetings. You actually want them to talk. So it will say, Lena can tell something about leadership, and I can tell her about how to do future studies, and then we can go for a walk and talk for half an hour, and then we get points of each other. Remember that it's a gaming generation entering the labor market now. So we have this kind of avatar, and they make sure, and they can actually see these people have interacted, and they have trained each other. So in the future, we're going to go to feedback fitness. So if you are a co-worker, you might as well work for many different companies at once. If you don't get the feedback, you might as well cash in and work for both Microsoft and Google at the same time and sit at home, or even send some of your jobs to Fiverr and get some people who work in India to do it even cheaper while you get your salary. But if you go to work, if you go to a real people place with real leadership, then you want to have feedback fitness. So that is going to be a big challenge, especially if people only come so often into the office, how to make sure that you really use that time sensibly. Because if you hug your child or your coworker saying you did really well, the happiness curve go all the way to the ceiling. If you call people, there's still some happiness curve coming up, but if you send a text message saying you did really well, flatliner. Again, we are back in the hunter-gatherer society. It doesn't work. So we have to understand what modes work at what times. Another challenge that is very big with this is that we have a new A and B team, if you like. Poverty is always relative, and if a lot of people become time owners, they can sit and choose where and how and when to work, it becomes much harder to be a time slave. So getting doctors to actually come in and operate at 5 o'clock in the morning, they have these high grades, why don't they do some consulting work online somewhere else, you know? So we're going to have challenges, and getting all this tender loving care jobs is already hard to get enough people and hands, and it's going to be even more difficult because people will lose this freedom to work according to a compass. They have a watch. And even in manufacturing companies, you have the administration who are time owners and the production teams who are time slaves. It creates this us and them. And it's really hard for leaders to bridge this and find out how do we take care of the precision age and these layers of individuality and personalization, adaptive understanding, while at the same time securing the onboarding, the team spirit. So that's a challenge. The other thing is, well, I went at a mess because Denmark is one of the countries with most cameras on the streets, and I had Simon on stage, and he was homeless. He'd been living on the street for 8 years since he was 16, and we were interviewing him, when we have all these cameras, why did nobody pick up Simon the first night he was sleeping on the street? And he was talking, yeah, it's really bad, then I wouldn't have become an alcoholic, and maybe I could have gotten an education or a job. And he's talking, and I have 5 people sitting there in the audience, and I say, Simon, how come you're so good at communicating? And he said, but I speak with people on a bench for 10 hours a day, of course I'm good at communicating. He said, but in the same period of time, I've noticed nobody's talking to each other anymore. Everybody's having stuff in their ear. And when I walked here, I noticed, same thing in Luxembourg. People have stopped talking to each other. And as I told you, laziness is a huge driving force. So if we don't have to risk somebody's talking back at us, it's much easier just to write a text and then be otherwhere present. So we have this paradox. We never had so much access to information, and at the same time we're risking this huge feedback crisis. So many people live on their own, they have their agendas, but all the stuff they should know.
Play jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, dentist at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
And we're gonna do one more.
Oh yeah. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey, open door.
Play on the floor.
Get over the door. Open the door.
Wrong
Open the door.
In South Korea, they say, okay, people are looking at the phone all the time, so we have given up on the red and green light. We put it on the floor instead.
Korea has streetlights on the floor, so you can keep staring on your phone.
Smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. Don't pop.
So big leadership task ahead, both from the Great Reflection, the big stay interview, but also activism employee, activism co-workers who are out there on the social media being heroes or villains. The leader responsibility in having the Swedish hair, quiet quitting. I told you that the most important thing is a good teacher or a good leader. It's actually the most important thing to even have a vocabulary to talk about it and to deal with it in a constructive way without scaring people off, telling them, you are a leader, and that is the most important factor for retaining and developing our workforce. There are a lot of taboos there, which is at least as important as the trends. How do you build a sustainable future? I know you have the sustainability board here as well. You move from leadership to sustainability, but a lot of people don't even have the competences. So how do you reskill into sustainability, which is also a very important task. And then this lifelong learning that everybody's talking about, but nobody seems to be implementing. How do you create this school hacking? We have seen now a young generation who say, I'm not going to sit at university for 5 years listening to some professor and telling me something which will be outdated by the time I finish. How can I go from if and when learning to just in time, where I can hack this and that. So we really see two types of people right now. One type which is binging, watching what everybody else is doing and not really getting into it. They need a lot of feedback fitness from their leader. They need encouragement to say, no, the robots are not coming. You will be very important. Please get involved now, and please make your footprint on this world and design what you want to do. And then there's another group which are really leading themselves almost too much. So you have these two groups that you have to juggle. So we were talking before at the welcoming session whether the future is bright or gloomy. And as a futurist, I'm not allowed to say that. I just polish the window and say interesting, exciting. But I will say that we've never been living so long. I just worked for the police last week. They say there used to be one bank robbery a day. Now we have one a year. There are no people doing graffitis anymore. They're all sitting gaming behind their computer. So there's nobody on the street. It's really safe to walk out there. We live longer and better than ever before. And I know that there are some crazy people that can do crazy things out there, but most of us are perfectly sensible, and we really want the best out of people and the planet. And everybody who goes to work, they do the best they can. So from that perspective, I think we could get the best rather than the most, pushing us like a lemon. Maybe thanks to the precision age, giving us some epiphanies that maybe we knew, but suddenly we can put the numbers behind and we can argue and have it prioritized like never before. So my last question to you is to talk to your body about, and this is not in 30 years, which is what we are celebrating today, but what have you created in 5 years not done today? Or what signifies leadership in 5 years that doesn't signify leadership today? Try and talk to your body about that. Or maybe if it's easier for you, just say what you have definitely stopped doing in 5 years that you're doing today. Yes. And then, then I would like you to think about that thing and stand up with me. Just stand up, please. Yes. And then we will send off a rocket to the future, thinking about that thing we want to create at least in 5 years from now. And we do that by stepping really hard in the ground, and then we do like this, and then this, and then we say to the future. Are you ready? Well, we are celebrating 30 years, right? So we have to look 30 years ahead now. So are you all ready? To the future! Have a happy future. Thanks. Any questions? I can answer any question. No. I think it's on. Should be on. Can we have a little louder on the microphone, please? You probably have to speak all the way down in it. Anyway, you're talking about innovation and creativity. My assumption that it's going to explode, you are doubting that because it's being automated. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah, that was what you were thinking. Mm? Mm-hmm. Exactly. For sure. For sure. Mm. Yeah.
Created, there are less challenges in our
You're
lives.
completely
So,
right.
you know, like I
Yeah.
wonder.
No.
That's great.
I'm
that's good, but at the
I'm
same
saying
time,
that, and
are we then
exactly.
at some point
I think it's a
hitting-
great
yeah.
question, and I think as leaders as well, it's a very important question to pose. I think there's a great article that I will send you. It's called I think it's called the convenience of inconvenience. So let's just give an example. You can have the best sauce in the whole world created for you by the best Michelin chef. But sometimes you will actually be more happy trying to create your own béarnaise sauce. It's not perfect, it's not the world's best, but you are really excited about it and it makes you happy to cook it yourself. And I think you're absolutely right that we have to pick some areas. And I try to say it where the group that is binging, that is not actually getting involved. But the thing is, we've never had so many opportunities also for people with disabilities of different kinds. We never had so many chances to enter the labor market as we do today. There has been quite a lot of democratization, but I agree with you. Laziness is a huge driving force, and we think we're making our life easier by not talking to each other. But is that the life we want, or should we create a great welfare system where people live in units of one if they actually need something else? It's really up to us. As I said, the future is almost this white painting, and we can draw exactly the challenges we want, and we can decide almost how old do we want to be and what should be in it, and how much cyborgs should we be. Should we have the Neuralink inside and read each other's minds, or should we say, here goes the limit? And I actually think that my second one with these activists, young people in Iran saying, no, I don't want to wear a scarf. Maybe it's, some years ago I had young people in the States, they didn't want to take their driver license because they said, as long as I have a fast Wi-Fi, why should I have a driver license? I'm already there. You know, they already had a nice intuition for that. And now a lot of people are saying either yes or no. And I think for me, it's interesting, exciting, because I've grown up with, let's discuss that. There are many nuances, and it's really, I have 3 daughters, and one, after the COVID, she went to Berlin, and the guy standing at the nightclub, he touched her belly, and she was like, can I speak to your boss? You can't work in front of a nightclub if you touch the women who are going in. And all 4 girlfriends went out. They were arguing for 3 hours with this nightclub owner. And I was like, why don't you just go out and party? No, if I don't say no now, other women will come after me. Enough is enough. You know, like, and I think so we have this generation who are activists and who are saying, this is as far as we go. And maybe they have to, because we have CRISPR. We can change our genetic makeup. We can make everybody 20 IQ points more clever if we want. Some people are saying this is going on in China as we speak. A more silent hybrid war, if you like. So how far do we want to go? There are huge ethical questions. So maybe we are seeing a generation now who's very black and white, hero or villain, because they have to train saying, this is privacy, or this is how far we should go in changing our makeup or our bodies. I don't know. But I think you're completely right. We are in a situation where we have to decide. Should our children learn to cook, for instance? Is that a good skill? We see houses in the UK now, they've been built without a kitchen, only a little boiling station, and then you can have a kitchen you go to at special occasions.
Well, I guess it's a shared observation, and maybe there is a question, I don't know. But as I'm listening to you, a couple of thoughts come to mind. The first one is that, yeah, it's an incredibly rapid pace of change from a technological point of view. And at the same time, human nature is on a much slower path of evolution. And what I'm hearing you say, I can't help feeling, is that as we're adapting to this interesting and exciting future, that actually it's more back to basics when it comes to human nature. And what I mean by that, and you've said it in several different ways, is that it's back to basics in terms of conversation, connection, and collaboration. So, you know, if leadership is about anything today and tomorrow, it's about facilitating the conversation that is real, that's authentic, that opens up this bandwidth of ideas when people get together. And it's the only way to bring out the best in people, is to create connection through real conversation so that there can be some significant and meaningful collaboration.
That said, of course, it's so you can have kind of flipped classroom. So let's say you have some security things that I have to know before entering the bank, how to update my software so I won't get hacked. That could be good to do individualized, adaptive for me, because I have a different learning style than Daniel does. So we can do that apart, and then we can come together, and then we have freed up some time to discuss other things when we meet, you know. So again, the precision age is understanding what situation is good for what. We have to be much more literate in how to create value and get something better out of people. Does it make sense?
Yes, and I guess the question, if there is one, is, you know, if the future is now, so what advice do you have for the leaders today to really, you know, engage and gear up for this future?
To be curious and to experiment and to be really happy that they are leaders in this awakening period with biodiversity, and there is not one size that fits all, and it's okay to test and to check. Just to give you another example around trust. Some people are letting people work at home because they trust that people do the best they can. Other companies are monitoring, so you press record when you go to work in the morning and stop record in the afternoon, and then there's an algorithm seeing whether you have done other stuff or taken too long breaks, so it's almost even more control. So there are many menus out there, and I think people have started to walk with their feet, so they will do some voting themselves. So I think really we're moving from leadership to followership, because people will gather around the leaders who are there for them and who are creating this kind of feedback fitness. What I've noticed is that in an accelerated time, where we have a lot of young people who are not doing well mentally, they are really pushed, maybe due to time spent online, I don't know. It's very popular, for instance, to enter the military, because you are told this is when you meet, this is when you go home, then you do this, then you do that. That's exotic in a world where everything is in the air. Or to go on boarding schools or travel and be in a group where you're told some rules. So they actually like having that kind of feedback structures, which there's a very clever futurist many years ago, Alvin Toffler. He wrote Future Shock, and he talked about this accelerated pace, and he said it's almost like when Danish-speaking or German-speaking went to the States in the Depression 100 years ago, the kids became parents for the parents because they were the first one to learn English and the culture. So the parents lost their authority, and we're a little bit the same with digitization, that we think, oh, the young people know, so we better not take any room. So John Goodenough, he is sent on retirement, rather than actually saying, no, I actually have some insights, and giving that some space as well.
More questions?
I'm giving very long answers, I'm sorry. You can just ask my father.
Well, actually, with what you've seen, curious to know your thoughts as well. But to your point, where the knowledge becomes more outdated quicker, which will increase in time, do you today already observe a change in behavior in the schooling system? Or can you maybe find a trend, or is there any trend crystallizing, or are we still in this discussion and thinking about it stage?
We're still in discussion and finding out that the teachers are important. So what happens in the situation where students can go and find another teacher somewhere, maybe that they are not so loyal to their study. I'm sitting on the board at CBH Business Academy, and they are right now working a lot with these adaptive styles where you can do something alone and other things on the course. And they are saying in 10 years' time, you won't even have to do an exam any longer because you can monitor when people are learning, so there's no reason to give them an exam at the end. So there are a lot of revolutions going on. Something like, we've known that for ages, but the forgetting curve is huge. So in 14 days, you can remember 2% of what I said today. It's terrible. So we should do micro-learning in small bites instead of, bombarding people. So I feel
like we have all that knowledge already.
And we don't, yeah. But there is no competition in the schools. That's a problem. They're having the monopoly at the moment. So unless, businesses and other agents are starting to create their own schools. So the Danish Defense have actually created their own course where people have hacked their way in to apply for the job, and then they are having a 2-year course. So that's an example of a business deciding, well, we want to train our own employees because we can't pick the traditional educated person anymore.
Yeah, if I may, you talked about this age of precision. You also said you have children. Just for those of us that have children and grandchildren and so on, and let's look 10 years ahead. What are the key skills you would be saying that the children now need to learn, the things that they really ought to be good at?
I think they need to do the training, so you can go to a fitness center every day for 40 years without getting stronger, but actually not just looking at the big baking competition, wherever they see that, but then go to the kitchen and bake the cake themselves again and again and again until they actually manage to deliver themselves. So that bridge from knowing about to actually being able to do and feeling the happiness of getting that, I can do it, So solving something, the happiness of that, of feeling meaningful, of feeling valuable, and I think that can be trained at any arena, and I think people will look for leaders that will keep them updated. I think they'll be very aware that we are living in an acceleration society. So if I want to work in a bank, I'm not thinking I want to work in the bank business. I might do it because I know they are far ahead on digitization. They are far ahead on some of the issues that come. So that would be a good place for me in order to stay updated. So I think people will look a little bit on where can I have that training. Yes? Oh. Yeah.
Thank you for the brilliant presentation. And yeah, as a financial guy, I always look in the future as something interesting but also risky. And what do you think about a metaverse becoming some technology that can split people even further than we have now, as effectively metaverse is much more interesting than the real world? And so the people who would stay in the real world, they would earn much more money, effectively, because there would be scarcity of people. And those that in metaverse, and effectively there would be like segregation between elites who would be staying in the real world and people staying in metaverse. And one of the risks of metaverse is that you can pay to win. Because in the real world, I cannot beat Rafael Nadal. But in the metaverse, there is no limit for like in modern games, you can pay money to get some advantage over other players, and like this risk of metaverse splitting the society in two parts.
Yeah, it's super interesting. The money thing, I think, is really fantastic, that you can actually get a Gucci bag in a metaverse, which is more expensive than the real Gucci bag. And there was this Japanese guy, he bought a dress for his wife. It was designed for her, but it doesn't exist in the real life. She can only wear it on TikTok and Snapchat and LinkedIn. And it looks good on her, but it doesn't exist. And he paid something like 10,000 euro for this dress. And it's just interesting, exciting, and I think you need to be a gamer to understand that this is going on. Who is going to be the winners and who's going to be the losers, I don't know. Again, hopefully, I think it's great with Maersk that they can save some CO2, not sending people on a vessel, but that they can do some simulation and training. And at the same time, I'm so happy to be here today with you. Early on today, I did a presentation in Dublin. I wasn't there. I was looking into a screen for 1 hour, and I was so drained afterwards. I was really tired. Hopefully, the metaverse is going to be better. But for now, we can only see the top of our body, so hopefully we'll have the legs coming. I mean, traditionally, the porn industry has been a good driver of this, so... And I don't know, it's interesting. As I said, with my replica, you will meet Kim at drinks. I think the lines will blur. So it's not going to be this society against that society. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a woman, but I can't think of any time in history where it would have been better for me to be born also this part in the world. Thank goodness. But I really think I have a fantastic playing field out there, and that can create some depression because am I doing good enough? Am I making enough effort? I have all these opportunities, so it's more spoiled of opportunity that is the crisis rather than things I cannot do. And I think all in all, we are spoiled brats if we don't are happy with that outlook. I mean, if we look at earlier generations, they had a really hard time, even before the 70s. Yeah?
Other questions?
You know, the questions are the most important in the future because we will have this, we will be all online all the time. So it's posing the good questions, which is the most important part. So thank you for that.
One of the angles that is confusing to me and that I feel a little bit scared about is how do we make sure that we take everybody on board? Okay, we see a lot more and more, you know, people are struggling to catch up with the speed at which some of the changes are taking place. And in your capacity, how do you take that into consideration in the advisor, in advising, you know, the people you're working with? Because I just feel that there is a significant risk of having people really, a large part of the people left behind because you've got some of those trends that are only really driven by some people.
Mm-hmm. As I said, we do have the very, very rich and the Piketty, and we have these tech giants. That said, there has been a lot of democratization, and the specialists that I'm working with, again, the autism, they have a much better time now being in a biodiverse work field where there is now a vocabulary for talking about having some special issues that need to be taken care of, that is okay to have that conversation. Blind people, they now have a mapping that actually allow them with words to tell them exactly what they are seeing. We have Be My Eyes. Then you had Silicon Valley even creating a new eyesight to blind people. Unfortunately, that went bankrupt. So they had their sight back for 5 years, and now it's bankrupt, and they then lose their sight again, which is not very nice. But I think I think there are a lot of, I don't know if you heard about Hans Rosling. He's talking a lot about the future and how a lot of things is moving in the right direction. I think we have one big issue, and that's biodiversity and sustainability. There we really have to get our act together and then solve a few wars. But otherwise, I see no reason to not having as much diversity, especially if you can look at the society it brings. We have the loneliness issue that is big, but again, we're starting to create some community building because we know that. So we know what is wrong, and we can do something about it. I think there were. I spoke to a young girl, and she was living in the countryside, and she's now a professional shopper of one of the big stores in Copenhagen. And she said, well, I started following all these designers on Insta, and I started communicating with them, and suddenly they took me on this trip to Berlin to spot new trends. And she said, I would never have had that if Facebook hadn't existed. I have broken through the glass ceiling. Because somehow, if you're really engaged and if you're really involved, you can link on to people and you can actually start getting in there. And in the old hierarchical structure where, you had to be a newspaper reader and it was only certain families, she thought at least it had been better for her.
Is there a last question? Otherwise, I think we will close it here and say interesting, exciting.
But we're not closing anything. We're going for drinks.
No, close it in here. So now, Liselotte, you will stay with us for the drinks and the networking. So if you have other questions, please do feel free to ask them.
Yeah, or write me on LinkedIn.
Or even.
Something. Is there one more question? No.
It is coming, it is coming. Don't worry, Donald, I haven't forgotten yet. That's why I'm moving slowly over here. But otherwise, ask your buddy, because now we have buddies for life, right?
Yes.
Which is important for the loneliness. So really, thank you very much.
Thank you,
It was
Lena.
really interesting, exciting, and
hope you won't get too big a ticket from Copenhagen.
That will be in the future, right?
Yes.
But Liselotte, because we wanted to show you a bit of appreciation.
Oh,
Here
thank
is
you.
a little gift from Luxembourg.
Thank you
for
very much.
And we hope that you will be able to enjoy it.
Thanks.
A Luxembourgish brand.
Oh my God, it's alcohol. I'll drink it right away.
You can have a drink outside with us.
Interesting, exciting.
So please join us outside for the networking.
Thanks.
And thank you.